Hello students, this is your makeup video for September 17th for the live session. Today we are going to go to the September 3rd live session and open up our PDSA document. You can pause now and do that if you'd like. After we finish with our PDSA document, we're going to go over the quiz and we're going to do some work with a new example in class. So here we are in the PDSA document. In this document, we are going to work on our check 1. You have your quiz back. You can find that in the September 16th offline assignment. So go to the September 16th offline assignment and you can find your quiz there. You have a grade listed. You also can check your grade in Infinite Campus. That's in Infinite Campus already. And so you can look at the comments. If you look in Google Classroom at your quiz, you can see the comments that I left for you. And you can assess where you are based on how well you did in each of these different parts of the quiz. So take just a few minutes, go through. Just as a reminder, click on the box that you are assessing. So you'll be doing check 1 column for each of the learning targets. So I can describe the levels of structure of a complex organism from the cellular level to the level of the entire organism. If you weren't able to identify pathways so that you look at receptors to nerves to the brain, that might be part of this. But more specifically, if you can't identify that the brain sends a signal through the nerves to muscle cells that are parts of muscle tissue that are actually complete organs, and those are part of the overall organ system of muscles. If you don't remember that, then that's the part here that you want to evaluate. So if you don't quite remember it, go up to the fill in color and maybe say, you know what, I'm almost there, but I still have a few questions. So you can put that information in right here. And you're going to do that for all of these 6 boxes. You can go ahead and pause for a second and then come back when you're finished. Now that you are finished, your self-evaluation might look something like this. It might not, but here is an example of what it might look like completely filled in. Now we're going to go to My Data, and you're going to look at what your quiz score was, and you're going to fill in a bar graph that matches your quiz score. You can use similar colors if you would like. So let's say that this person got a 3, and so I'm going to choose the fill-in color. A 3 is yellow, so I might fill this one in yellow. You don't have to do that. You can fill it in any color that you would like. But you're going to make a bar graph that corresponds with the score that you got for learning check number 1. Now that you're finished with your learning check, let's go to academic vocabulary. So this is the 3rd tab down at the bottom. The first one, plan and do, is hidden behind this for me. Study Act is here. Academic vocabulary is here. So I'm going to go to academic vocabulary, and I'm going to put in today's date. Whatever day that you're looking at this, that's the day that you can use. So you can go through and put in the date. Okay, so what is true about these different key vocabulary words? And as you're looking at them, you're going to fill in the date that corresponds with what is true. Maybe before you could define sensory receptor in your own words, but now you can answer questions about it. So you're going to go ahead and put in today's date, and whatever today's date is for you, you're going to put in today's date for the terms under what is true. Now that you're back, let's go ahead and go to your slide for Pavlov's dog. This is what we're going to work on today. You can split your screen so that you can see what I'm doing in this video and also have your copy of your Pavlov's dogs up. You can do that by dragging your screen to one side. So if you take this and drag it all the way over, it will set up in a way that looks like this. And then you can choose which other box you would like to show up. So you can open up your Pavlov's dogs out of your Google Classroom, and that would be this assignment right here. And then you can see what I'm doing in Google Meet on the other side. So um, here is the scenario. Ivan Pavlov was a researcher, and he had dogs in his lab, and so these dogs were in the lab for various things. And what the researchers who worked in the lab realized is that the dogs would salivate; they would start to drool um, when they opened the doors to feed the dogs. They knew that they were getting ready to be fed. And so Pavlov thought, maybe we could do a little bit more experimentation with this. Could we associate things in their mind so that something that doesn't have anything to do with food, the sound of a bell, for example, could elicit the response or could cause the response of salivating? So he did some experiments in that he rang a bell. So he took a bell and he rung that bell each time that he fed the dogs. The dogs began to salivate when the bell was rung. Eventually, Pavlov stopped feeding the dogs while he was ringing the bell and he just rang the bell. The dogs still salivated when they heard the bell because they connected the food and the sound. So your job is to describe the scenario of what happens when the scientist rings the bell and feeds the dog. Then describe how Pavlov's dog might respond the next time he hears a bell. Here are your three steps that you're going to do. So you're going to label the steps for receiving the stimulus and producing a response. And that is, remember, three steps. You're going to identify what systems are involved. And there are at least two options, one for the dog's immediate response and one for the next time he hears a bell ring. So let's go ahead and start going through this. You can fill in your slides as we go. This is what your slides look like, very similar to your quiz, and it'll be very similar to the test that you do as well, to the summative. So the first thing that we're going to do is identify the type or types of stimuli and the receptor that detects them. If you need to go back and look at this, you can do that. You can go back in your notes. The reading that we did for the receptors and the stimuli was from a couple of weeks ago. It was from, I believe, the 9th of September, and we did a reading. So you can go back in your offline for the September 9th assignment, and you can find that reading, and you can find the chart that you did. What you should be able to find here is that there are two types of stimuli, mechanical stimulus and chemical stimulus. The specific mechanical stimulus is sound, and the receptor that detects sound is the hair cells in the cochlea. You could also call those auditory receptors. The second type of stimulus is chemical, and the specific type of chemical stimulus is smell. So in this case, smell is the sense that's going to pick this up, and the receptors for smell are called olfactory receptors. For the next part, what is the pathway for the signal to get to the brain? I'd like to start out by talking about this generally. So, in general, the way that a pathway gets to the brain is that when you have a stimulus, a receptor picks up that stimulus. The receptor starts to send the signal along the nerves to the brain. So, what that would look like for each of our two stimuli would be this. The auditory receptors will pick up the stimulus and will send a signal along the auditory nerve to the brain that there's some kind of sound in the environment. The olfactory receptors in the nose will pick up the smell. They will send that signal along the olfactory nerve, and again, that will reach the brain. For number two, what does the brain do with the information it receives? This is the general idea of what the brain does. It identifies the sound as a bell ringing, and it identifies the presence of food. So we've talked about this in terms of two different responses, an innate or immediate response. The innate response is like the fight or flight response that we've been talking about in the past, but it's a very basic response and one that we don't have to think about. And then the other is if we have to access memory or if we have the opportunity to access memory. So that would look like this. In the innate response, the brain sends signal to the digestive tract through nerves to salivate and get ready for food. For memory retrieval, the dog would retrieve the memory of the bell that's associated with the food and start salivating. So then we need to look at what is Pavlov's dog's response to this. And again, there are two responses. One would be the immediate response based on the innate processing, and one would be a stored memory response based on retrieval of the memory. So take a look at the first one here. The dog associates the sound of the bell with being fed. So then the dog starts to salivate or drool to help with food digestion. The dog's going to eat the food, and this is going to reinforce the memory that the bell is equal to food. For the stored memory, dog hears the bell and recalls or retrieves the memory of being fed when the bell rings. So the dog's going to salivate and expect to be fed. You can use these notes to help you on your corrections for your quiz, and that is your homework for tonight. It is to take this information along with all of the other information that we have covered in class and go back through your quiz and do your quiz corrections. And you will find more information on that in the homework assignment that is on Google Classroom. It'll give you a little bit better directions. Thanks and have a wonderful day.